Well, I wanted to get back into the topic of talking about Sam Raimi's movies.
Yeah, let's get into the actual. Let's get
Let's
into the
get
actual
into the
movies.
actual meat of this. I mean, in regards to, I know he had a kind of an unorthodox approach, I might say,
Well, I
because
feel
I mean, the character that he created is, I mean, it's definitely Peter Parker, but he definitely changed a lot of things. I think he made the character like dorkier, like
yeah,
dopier.
he was very dopey, but I feel like there was a lot more freedom back then because there weren't a lot of, at least not a lot of good superhero movies. Like it was Sam Raimi Spider-Man, X-Men, and I think Blade is another famous one. No,
Yeah,
and
but
Batman, of course. The Dark Knight
yeah,
was around that time, right?
a little bit later, if I'm not. Yeah, a little bit later because these ones were originally released, or the second one was released in like 2002, I think. About that time,
Uh,
early 2000s. But
yeah.
Batman's like the Dark Knight trilogy from Christopher Nolan was like later on in the 2000s. But I feel like Sam Raimi isn't given the credit he's due for the MCU.
Oh, for sure. Like there would be no MC without these movies that we just mentioned.
Yeah, like they definitely sort of.
Superhero movies before that were seen as like you
Yeah,
didn't want to do a superhero
yeah,
movie.
like even in the industry of film where everything is kind of like risky for it's already risky, and then like before Sam Raimi, they were just like superhero movies were just considered like I
Do
don't
we really want to
know.
do
Do
that?
we really want to go and do this? I don't know if this is like a lucrative field. And it's like
Yeah,
it goes from that to what, like
yeah. And
twenty nineteen,
now
where
if
it's like
you
the highest grossing
now if
movie
you
of all
don't do a
time.
superhero movie, nobody cares.
It's like, yeah, like you won't get money if it's
This
not a
is the
superhero film.
this is the era of superhero movies.
And it's insane that I feel like Sam Raimi doesn't get enough recognition for this.
Uh,
And I do feel like his interpretation of Spider-Man and also the villains. I feel
yeah.
like the villain. I mean, the end of the first movie was really cheesy.
The
But
whole movie was cheesy, but I loved it.
the
I
whole
loved
movie
it.
was cheesy, and I enjoyed these movies thoroughly. But I mean, the second movie with like Doctor
Yeah.
Octavius and who's the guy, the actor,
Alfred Molina.
Alfred Molina. I'm pretty sure Alfred.
Yeah, the actor for Doc Ock. That's
Yeah,
Alfred
Alfred
Molina.
Molina.
That's Alfred
Alfred Molina.
Molina.
And it's like I'm pretty sure he's Mexican too, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know.
But like because I mean, his interpretation of Doc Ock was, I feel like,
Oh, it's
one of the strongest representations of villains and like giving a character depth who's an antagonist. Like in this, I just like remember vividly because you had like the person of like who like Otto Octavius, and then you had like and then you have like Doctor Octopus.
yeah, which is really the tentacles.
Yeah, it's really the tentacles,
Like
but
messing with his mind.
and it's sort of I don't know, like I always thought the second one to be like one of the most impactful like superhero movies I've seen.
Yes, of
Just
course.
because like the and because I feel like Sam Raimi did this on purpose, that the real superhero in that movie isn't. It was sort of
Yeah.
Alfred. It was
Otto Octavius.
Like,
Otto Octavius died a hero.
like he died a hero.
Like I love
he was
that line.
manipulated.
Like his last line, "I will not die a monster." It sent chills down my back. Oh, by the way, he's from the UK, so
From
that
the
is not
UK?
Mexico.
Oh, because he was in the Frida Kahlo movie.
Oh,
Yeah, and he
Um,
speaks like fluent Spanish too.
but yeah, and Otto Octavius, I don't think it's a hot take to say that he's widely regarded as one of the best, if not the best, supervillain depicted on screen.
Yeah,
honestly,
absolutely.
if you ask me, I
I mean, like-
personally prefer the first movie, but I see that I acknowledge that the second movie is probably the most impactful one.
Like when it comes to supervillains in like like comic book based movies, like you think Heath Ledger or now like Joaquin Phoenix, but you know what, Alfred Molina isn't given enough. I feel like enough.
He's up there.
I mean, he's definitely up there because his interpretation of a villain, like his motives were like righteous, and he was like a good person, and then he ended up dying. He was more like an anti-villain than an actual villain in that way,
Mm-hmm.
just because of what transpired, and he was just there for a movie too.
But a lot of it is his pride, because I remember in the movie there was this whole experiment about his generator, right? The machine he was making. And Peter had asked him, like, he was concerned. He said, if you make the slightest miscalculation, the city will blow up. And he said, nah, man, I've been up countless nights just running these calculations again and again. And then it blew up in his face. And then when he actually became Doc Ock, he said, no, actually, my calculations could not have been wrong. I'll do it again. And that's him being prideful and just and using science for evil, even if he didn't really intend it.
And I feel like the more modern, the more like formulaic superhero movies that have come and gone. I won't name anything, or like, I'd say like Green Lantern or something like that. But it's that they're like, oh, these movies are profitable, but they don't go ahead and create a solid, like, maybe they go ahead and create a solid lead and create a solid protagonist, because that's what the movie's based on. But having an equally good antagonist is like so essential, and that's why Spider-Man 2 stands out so heavily, and that's why Heath Ledger was like regarded, like, as he was regarded as the character of the Joker.
Yeah, I can probably count, like, on one hand, maybe two if I try real hard to count the amount of memorable villains in the MCU, or even
I'd say
the DC movies.
It's like, do you really remember Umamo from Doctor Strange?
Dormammu.
Dormammu.
I remember him for the meme.
Like, I remember him from the meme too, but like,
there's nothing really that it's just a
and I'm not
big
gonna shit on Doctor
face.
Strange, because also Sam Raimi's about to direct the second Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah,
which I am so sad that there's not gonna be an R-rated version of that. But
I think one of the funniest memes that's come out of the fact that Sam Raimi is directing Doctor Strange is how people praise Sam Raimi for going the extra mile and doing practical effects as much as he can, and people are saying Sam Raimi will create dimensional, like, multi-dimensional transportation. He will do it all practical.
He will do it. Actually, he was going to go into the multiverse.
He is actually going to open a rift in space-time.
But like, it's funny, because then you go from Sam Raimi's movies that are are now like cult classics. They're like, I feel like they're, in a way, that they're not even like considered like they're not considered like the average like story for superheroes, or like the superhero movies that are now like created and known, because those are like enormous, like, ungodly budgets, ungodly people, like, working on it in like sets that are just like full on enterprises just for that one, like, movie and one product. And then it's like, and it was like Sam Raimi he was just given the opportunity to do that. And then moving from the early 2000s to the 2010s, when Andrew Garfield was Spider-Man, it's like, and then studios were like, my God, making superhero movies is incredibly lucrative. What if we
did it again and again and again and again
and again
and again and again and again?
And but getting into that, and I do want to hear your thoughts on what do you think of The Amazing Spider-Man?
The Amazing Spider-Man,
and both of those movies.
So I think we all know. Well, I say we all know, but I know. I don't know how. I don't know. I don't know what can be considered
the royal we.
I don't know what can be considered common knowledge, because a lot of stuff that people don't know is common knowledge to me. But I think a good amount of people know that Andrew Garfield was robbed, and Mark Webb was robbed of his vision. Like, Andrew Garfield has publicly said that the studio kind of ruined the movies.
Yeah, and
I do has feel been put at fault for that.
I remember watching an interview not so long ago of Andrew Garfield, like, talking about this. He was being interviewed for another movie or something else, But and then and he got choked up too because he clearly looked like he was somebody who really enjoyed the character and then was dealt a shit hand.
He is as much a fan as you and me.
Yeah, and I do, and it really does break my heart like to see like um like being associated to like being able to be associated to the character you love so dear but in a negative connotation,
Yeah.
which is like it can be like such emotional turmoil
Like,
for him.
if
And
I were given the chance to get in the suit and be in the movie, and then it turns out that it's bad, that it gets compromised, that it's not a good Spider-Man story, I would be devastated.
yeah, and I can see how that caused him a lot of grief, but at the same time there were still moments even in both of those movies where you could see his acting like shine through.
Oh yeah, like
And
in both of the movies, you could
I
definitely
did like
see.
his acting interpretation of Spider-Man, even if it's like if it just in regards to his individual experience as an actor
Mhm.
with the character and being able to interpret the character. I feel like he did great, and I understand the difficulties presented from the studio, from the writers, and just like everybody being down like the creatives' throats just in order to get like the product out there and be able to sell.
I would say that the scene on the bridge, I'm pretty sure you know which one I'm talking about. When the lizard's wreaking havoc and Spider-Man has to go in and save a bunch of people because he's throwing cars off the bridge. I would go so far as to say that is better than a lot of Sam Raimi stuff. Like that scene is up there with one of the best
Absolutely.
scenes
And it's
in all of Spider-Man media.
and most people forget that Mark Webb directed both of the Amazing Spider-Man movies, right?
Yes, he did.
And it's like Mark Webb is an amazing director. Like he directed 500 Days of Summer, and that movie is regarded as an amazing fleet of storytelling, and it's just like an actual like story of love and what it is, and like he has such a grasp of human emotion and being able to exude that through an audiovisual medium.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that specific scene with Peter saving that kid and giving it to his father really is reminiscent of sort of what the character Peter Parker has to sacrifice, and he like clearly understands the character and what it means and what it represents, but nonetheless they were given like very very shit hand, and I do feel sorry for them. And it's before maybe not knowing enough of what happened, I did shit a lot thinking about it on Andrew Garfield.
I think we all did.
And on Mark Webb.
Unfairly so.
But you have to remember that it was the studio. Now everybody knows that it was a studio that actually did it, and they weren't really them. It was stuff that they were forced to do.
Yeah, and
looking like above their pay grade.
And looking at Spider-Verse, I'm hoping that it looks like Sony's learned their lesson, because.
But you have to remember also, I mean, Into the Spider-Verse, the animated movie right here.
Yeah.
That is a different facility than Sony Pictures.
Sony Pictures.
Sony Animation and Sony Pictures are two different things. That's why the exec producer, who I always forget the name of, Avi Arad.
But he was still an executive producer here, if I'm not mistaken.
He's probably higher up in that regard, but also, I mean, he clearly doesn't understand. Like from what we've seen him do and how we know he's manipulated these movies, he clearly doesn't know the character as well, so he probably more invested on like live action on screen than this.
Yeah.
And that's why that's why I'm also really scared for the second one, because they're like, this movie's incredibly profitable and Avi Arad's gonna probably get this.
For those of you who don't know, Avi Arad was the man responsible for Venom in Spider-Man 3. Sam Raimi has gone on record saying multiple times saying like he doesn't like the character of Venom, but Venom sells toys, so that's that. And he also wanted, I feel like
that's just Avi Arad not understanding the character, because like they don't get any money from toys. and that's why they're so. That's why it's such a legal battle for the rights on screen of Spider-Man,
right.
because the people that actually make the toys and make the money from the toys,
That's Disney, right?
it's Disney, and Sony doesn't make a dime from that.
True.
I could be mistaken, but from my understanding, that is how it works.
But still, Avi Arad loves Venom, and he said to Sam Raimi, he forced him to put Venom in the movie, which was supposed to be. I really don't like thinking about the production of Spider-Man 3. I like the movie. I still think it's enjoyable despite its several flaws. But
several flaws.
several. But it's still an enjoyable movie. But I don't like thinking about the production, because in the first minutes of the movie, you can still see what it was supposed to be, a story about Peter Parker succumbing to the sin of pride. Like, this is the story begins with Peter saying that with Peter saying and being shown being loved by all of New York as Spider-Man, and New York oftentimes kind of doesn't like Spider-Man.
Yeah, and it's really just like they do or they don't, but I mean, and in those movies and in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, you can clearly see how the studio like manipulated heavily, and they were like, what if we make a little dubstep scene in Amazing Spider-Man 2?
The Amazing Spider-Man
like
2
fighting, and it sounds all like hip and cool, like the kids like it.
A big thing about the Amazing Spider-Man 2 is it's just a setup for the Sinister Six.
It really was just a setup for
because we got Rhino. Rhino was there for no reason. Electro, and the Green Goblin out of nowhere.
Oh yeah, that was really awkward.
Did you forget the Green Goblin was?
No, I remember, but it was just a really that movie.
It was in the last 5 seconds.
The movie was just really odd, and I didn't enjoy it as much as I probably wanted to, and I just feel bad knowing that me like being a kid watching that movie and being like, this is garbage. Fuck Andrew Garfield. What did he do?
Oh man, you want to hear a story about when I found out Andrew Garfield, like they were rebooting Spider-Man? Even as a kid, I was a huge fan of Spider-Man and the Sam Raimi movies. I remember once I didn't read the newspaper as a kid, but one morning I woke up and like when was it announced that it was getting a reboot? Like 2011, 2010?
Reboot for Andrew Garfield?
Like they were rebooting the Spider-Man Raimi films and making them the Mark Webb films with Andrew Garfield.
2012, 2013, I think.
Around that time, I didn't read the newspaper. I was just a kid. But one morning I woke up and I saw a newspaper on the kitchen counter with a picture of some guy dressed up in a Spider-Man outfit. And I said, "Oh, this caught my eye." So I pick up the newspaper and it says
like 2011, 2010.
Yeah. So 2011, and I pick up the newspaper and it says that Sony's rebooting the Spider-Man movies. And I asked my mom, like, what does this mean? And she says, "Oh, they're going with a new actor." And I say, "Well, is there still going to be a Spider-Man 4?" And she said, "No, they're starting over." And that was a very sad day for me. Which now I know better, but it still is pretty sad for me.
Yeah. I feel like that movie looked really nice. Those movies looked really nice.
Yes.
But I feel like
if you ignore Lizard, they look really nice.
Yeah, besides the Lizard. But like the movie looks really nice, and both of them do. Both of them are like very bright and colorful, and they look pretty. But I feel like they opted more towards, we're gonna make Spider-Man look like Spider-Man, not let's develop the character and then like he evolves with the position and whatnot. It really felt more like a marketing ploy and just to make it look pretty.
I feel like that's more the case.
Develop the story.
I feel like that's more the case with the Amazing Spider-Man 2, because with the Amazing Spider-Man 1, I
definitely, because they clearly had less manipulation for the first one than the second one. It's like, I don't know. I really don't fuck with the goggles and the costume like for the second movie.
Yeah, the lenses.
I feel like they're way too big.
I like the big lenses, but that's just me.
They look just so cosplay. Just they look straight up like Andrew Garfield's. Andrew Garfield's just motherfucking doing cosplay.
You got something
I
against
don't have
cosplay?
anything against cosplay, but if it's a multi-million-dollar production
Yeah.
with just an insane amount of people working on it, I imagine that they're gonna do something different or like something like cool and new instead
Yeah.
of just like
Halloween party.
the Halloween party. He looks like a cosplay. You could
No,
be
but
him.
I love the suit in the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
I prefer the first one just because it felt more. You have a problem with those Oakleys.
Yes, I do have a problem with those Oakleys.
You have a problem with those Oakleys on the suit, and I don't have a problem with those Oakleys just because it definitely felt like you could see how smart the character was, and you could see like even that montage sequence of him developing the suit and
the
whatnot.
creation scene, the suit creation scene was definitely a really good scene in the first Amazing Spider-Man movie. But the thing is,
like I really like to see him make the suit because
great.
it's like because in the Sam Raimi trilogy
You see him draw, and that's nice. But
and it's nice and all, but like it goes from that.
I can see
it goes
that.
from drawing to actually having the suit, and it's not like a simple suit either.
No,
like
it's
Sam
very
Raimi's
elaborate.
like super elaborate, and I was like, you a master stitcher? What the fuck?
raised webbing, which I love, by the way.
Sam Raimi costume is my favorite costume so far. And it's
Yeah.
like I love that costume to death, but at the same time, that motherfucker could not have made it. He is way too dopey looking to be a master
This man,
stitcher,
sewer.
whatnot, like sewer.
Yeah, but the thing about by the way, don't go on Spider-Man Twitter. They will eat you alive. It's a cesspool of just degeneracy and bad takes. But I do partake in Spider-Man Twitter, and people seem to like the first Amazing Spider-Man suit, and I can't get around those lenses. I don't like them.
I can't get around the second one. They're just too big.
I'm a fan of big, round, white lenses.
So
Don't take this out of context.
Like the comic books.
Like the comic books. No, but I still like.
But like it's
the more
different
slanted lenses.
when you have the a comic book and then you're trying to interpret it. It's the same thing. It's the same principle when you have a novel and you're trying to make it into a film.
Yes, of
There's
course.
some things that you have to change in order to be visually pleasing, and there's a different type of visual pleasure from seeing something like this. Right now, I'm pointing at some of the like displays we have here of like Spider-Man in costume in comics, and then having that to, for example, like the sort of shape that Tobey Maguire has on his suit, which is like just like like the straight shot up.
The angry lenses.
The angry lenses, if you will.
Yes.
But
I understand the reason they went for the Oakleys.
I do feel like that this is why I didn't like the fact of what they did in the MCU with like Spider-Man,
Right.
giving him, the suit and
A
whatnot.
lot of people don't like that. I don't like that.
But at the same time, it
does make sense though.
It makes sense because it doesn't make sense in Sam Raimi that Tobey Maguire or like Spider-Man was just a master sewer and then just was able to make this like incredible suit just like that after making 3 sketches.
I don't take too much issue with the MCU suit being given to him by Tony Stark because he has a fantastic homemade suit. Like the homemade suit in the MCU is my favorite homemade suit.
Yeah, it's a relatively good homemade suit, and I feel like they gave him like a good leeway of like, no, this is something that a kid who is like brilliant could actually make.
Yes, of course.
In the way, like in regards to like budget and like the eyes and the lenses and stuff like that.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Which is like, it's cool, but it's not outlandish, which is what they were going for. Like Sam Raimi and like Peter Parker making that suit, that's outlandish. Even for what it is. And
even in the world of Sam Raimi.
Even in the world of Sam Raimi. But like going back into it does make sense, and I do like, even though I don't know how I feel about Iron Man giving him the suit, but I do like that suit, like the first like actual Spider-Man suit that they had in the MCU.
I don't mind that Iron Man gave him the suit. It's because as you said, it's a very well made suit, and he could not have done that. He couldn't have done that. But what I do take issue with is pretty much everything else that has to do with Spider-Man and Iron Man in the MCU movies. Spider-Man should not have an AI. Spider-Man should not have like 527 combinations of web,
Including
web.
an instant kill one
Oh,
given
he should
to
not
him,
have instant.
just
Spider-Man should
given
not
to
have an
him
instant kill.
just like that. Not even doesn't even have a car, and I was like, here's an absolutely.
He does not know how to drive.
This is more dangerous than a loaded gun, and we are giving it to this boy.
I think Tony really wants to get Peter to kill because first it's the instant kill mode in the suit, and then in Far From Home he gives him Edith, which is just a weapon of mass destruction.
It really is just a weapon of mass
Which is
destruction.
surprising because which is surprising because part of Tony's arc was not making weapons anymore.
And
here he is making weapons.
And I feel like this is a good segue from Mark Webb's movies into the Russos.
Oh yeah,
and into
we're
the
already
MCU.
We're already into this.
And we're already into this, and this is why I have a poster behind me, right above me of.
He did this to spite me.
Right above me of Iron Man, and I did it to spite you and to talk about how.
To spite me.
Do you feel like the character is sort of stunted or affected because of Iron Man's presence in the MCU?
Yes, I do feel this way.
All right.
I like Homecoming, but Far From Home kind of ruins some of the stuff Homecoming does because I'll give you an example. Take Homecoming's Vulture, right? To me, it's the best MCU villain ever, and it's up there with some of the best Spider-Man villains in movies. I don't think that's a hot take, but
I agree. Michael Keaton did a great job as the
fantastic.
Vulture.
And then you have Far From Home's Mysterio, who has a fantastic costume, classic fishbowl head, and everything. They're both motivated by Tony Stark, but with Vulture, it wasn't a pattern. It was just, I got screwed over by rich people, and one of them happens to be Tony Stark, who is like his main target. And then
I feel like the reason is, and I feel like your major issue is that this feels more like a Miles Morales thing, and Iron Man really feels like Peter Parker in this thing, because Iron Man was the hero. He was just doing it because he wanted to be a hero.
Wait, yeah, just let me finish with this real quick. Sorry, it's just you can't get me started with the MCU and then just not let me finish.
All right,
but
go off then.
So Vulture had a legitimate grievance with Tony Stark, and it's like, okay, whatever. It's just one movie. But then you get Far From Home, and Mysterio's motivation is he named my life's work Barf, and it's like, okay, man.
Jake Gyllenhaal though. I feel like
it's Jake Gyllenhaal. I loved his performance, and I loved the character of Mysterio. Other than his motivation,
like it was just written poorly, but he did a good job.
Yes,
of what he had to work.
But now it's a pattern. Now it's established as a pattern where every villain in the MCU, every Spider-Man villain in the MCU is an Iron Man villain. They have a grievance with Iron Man, and that's what I disagree with. Now we were talking about how this is a Miles Morales story.
He just feels like an arbiter for Iron Man, or like a new version of.
Yeah. And this leads very well into my least favorite scene in probably any Spider-Man related media ever. The airplane scene where in Far From Home, where Peter vents his frustrations at Happy. He says, "People expect me to be the next Iron Man." And then Happy says, like, you don't have to be the next Iron Man. No one can be the next Iron Man. Just be Spider-Man. And I was like, all right, that's a neat message, but we already learned that in Homecoming, whatever. And then Peter says, okay, I need a new suit. And he proceeds to make his new suit using Stark technology with, like, waving his hands at holograms, exactly the way Tony Stark did. And Happy played AC/DC's Back in Black in the background, which is basically Tony Stark's anthem in the MCU. and that culminates in just